Summer is upon us. Do you want to stay cool and dry at night? Try bamboo sheets from CozyEarth.com. Not only do you get a good night's sleep and stay cool and dry, but also you get to save 21% off just by using our code at checkout. InfoGo. And they have a 100-night sleep trial, so it's a win-win. If you don't like them, send them back, but I promise you'll fall in love with them. And while you're over there, check out their socks. They have a whole line of apparel. And that's CozyEarth.com. Use our code InfoGo at checkout to save 21% off.
Or,
Welcome.
sorry, I didn't mean to mess you up. Our top episodes today were Skull Cults and America's Presidential Libraries.
All right. I didn't think I would like Skull Cults, but when it came out, it is actually pretty good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Do you listen to our stuff?
Sometimes,
Okay.
occasionally,
Welcome to the
especially
pod.
when I'm sorry, God, jeez.
No,
especially when especially when I'm talking about it, I do bring up some things and eventually put it on.
you know, I guess before we begin this episode, we should clear the air. We don't have a production team. It is literally Kat and myself. We
Well,
do
Most
everything.
mostly him, mostly him. Let's just clarify that. Mostly William. I am the sidekick.
Well, no, you're not the sidekick. You're a co-host. Like,
Yes,
there's
yes,
different parts. Like, what are your personality on the show too? So it's not just
yes.
me.
No, no, it's not just you.
And I
You,
don't do all of the writing. I do all of the editing, though. I do that.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a shared venture. I mean, the way it even got started is kind of crazy too. Like, I didn't know anything about podcasting, and I think I would come to work and just tell random facts, and they were like, "You should start a podcast." And so, how did it come up? I don't
You
mean,
you came to work one day, me and a coworker were just standing there, and you were like, "I want to start a podcast. Do you want to be a co-host?"
yeah, and
Coworker was like, "No, not really." And I said, "Sure." And you're like, "Wait, really?"
that's right. I mean, people had told me to do the podcast about history and random stuff, and then I don't know, that's just how it came about. But anyway, today, to say all of that is actually that's a good segue into the history of the rear view mirror.
Yes.
Okay,
Looking at our past and how we got here.
there you go. So the first cars, they were not designed for safety. They were experiments. They were machines that were just barely held together by bolts, gears, and a little bit of optimism. Forget about mirrors. If you wanted to know what was behind you, you had three options. You could turn your entire body around, which they probably were doing. You could shout warnings to others, or if you were racing, bring someone whose only job it was to look backwards. Early race cars, they had riding mechanics.
And their job? Well, not fixing engines, not navigating, just watching and yelling. Car behind! But that's just how primitive awareness was back then. And the roads, well, they weren't empty like people imagine. They were chaos. There's horses, wagons, bicycles, pedestrians,
Not
early
pedestrians. Not,
right,
not pedestrians.
early automobiles. I mean, you had bag of Skittles
Let's
walking
just
these
say this.
streets.
There was absolutely no rules. Everything went.
Everything,
All
everything.
right.
Hope for the best.
But
Good luck,
then
everybody else.
But then in 1911, everything changed because now we go to one of the most important races in history, the Indianapolis 500. A young driver named Ray Heron. Well, he had a problem. Race rules said he needed a riding mechanic, but he didn't have one. So a second person meant extra weight, slower speed, more risk. So he did something, well, unconventional.
He removed the passenger and replaced him with a mirror. A small, shaky, almost laughably simple mirror mounted right onto the dashboard. No one had really tried it before. Some drivers laughed, others protested. They said it was unsafe, unfair, unproven, but officials allowed it. And during that race, Heron could see everything behind him without turning his head, without relying on somebody else. He had awareness, control, and advantage. And when the dust settled, he won.
So that tiny mirror did something remarkable. It didn't just help him win a race, it changed how people thought about driving. Other races, well, hey, it worked for him. I'm going to do it too. So it was immediately, you know, taken
It
in
caught
by
on
the, yeah,
fast.
there you go. So within a few years, mirrors started appearing on cars, but not the way you expect. At first, they weren't standard. They were, well, aftermarket add-ons, oddly shaped, mounted in, well, some of the weirdest places. Some sat on your dashboard, some were attached to the windshield frame, some were barely usable at all, and many drivers, well, they just didn't even trust the mirror. They probably didn't trust that it would stay on.
Fair enough. Because, I mean, none of the roads were also paved back then.
No. And yeah, there's no standard. So, I mean, could you imagine mounting it on the outside of the car, on like the front of the car? Or
It's craziness. Early mirrors were bad, okay? Tiny, blurry, vibrating constantly. Now, imagine trying to see a car behind you through something the size of a coin while bouncing down a rough road, okay?
wait, he was there. He was going, he's there. No, he's gone. He's there.
I'm thinking of the sound change makes in the cup holder, but visualizing that as a mirror.
Okay, yeah, because it would have probably just been polished metal at this point or something.
Right.
Well, I imagine you're going to have different variations. You're going to have polished metal. You're going to have actual mirrors. Maybe a chrome disc out there. I have no clue.
Now, people believed that mirrors distorted distance. They encouraged distraction. Turning your head was more reliable, but then you can't see what's in front of you.
Mm.
Some even saw mirrors as unnecessary, or worse, a crutch for bad drivers.
You're
Now,
a bad driver, so you got to have a mirror.
there was a strange pride in not needing one.
Mm, that's crazy. But the 1920s, when speed changed everything, because in the 1920s, something happened. Cars got faster, roads improved, traffic increased. And now, not knowing what was behind you wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous. So by the late 1920s, rearview mirrors went from optional to expected, not because laws forced it, but because reality did. And I think before we get into the blind spot problem, I think we should take a small break.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I came across Big Fork Brands recently, and it's become one of those finds you actually want to tell people about, and you don't find that often. Okay. They're doing bacon sausage, plus these really solid pork jerky snacks and Chicago style sauces. Basically, upgrade anything you throw them on burgers, hot dogs, fries, throw it on there. It works.
But I bet it's packed full of junk.
Actually, it's made with clean ingredients and real care. That's small batch with no shortcuts, and people are obsessed with the flavor. You can go over to bigforkbrands.com, use our code INFOGO at checkout, and get 20% off anything on the site.
You can find the link and our code in the show notes.
But even with a rear view mirror, there was still a major flaw. You could see directly behind you, but not beside you. Not the car creeping up in the next lane, not the one slipping into your blind spot. And as cities grew, especially in the 1930s, that gap in awareness became deadly.
So now we get to the rise of the side mirrors from the 20s to the 40s. Side mirrors began appearing quietly, usually as optional accessories mounted on driver doors, front fenders. And I know you've seen those mirrors mounted on the front fenders with the extended part of it.
Yeah.
But again, people resisted. They thought, well, it looked ugly on their car. It cluttered the car. It was just unnecessary. And socially, it had a reputation. Side mirrors were seen as something for, well, chauffeurs, commercial drivers, inexperienced motorists, not everyday drivers. You got a mirror, you're a bad driver.
Then came urban congestion, tighter streets, more cars, more interactions. Parallel parking became common, lane changes became constant, and suddenly, side mirrors weren't optional anymore. They were survival tools. Commercial vehicles adopted them first trucks, buses, taxis. And because for them, visibility wasn't style, it was safety.
And then in the 50s, after World War II, everything scaled up. Car ownership, well, it exploded with the baby boomers. Highways expanded. Route 66. Speeds increased dramatically. Driving was no longer local. It was fast and often unpredictable. And with that came consequences. Traffic fatalities surged.
By the 1960s, safety could no longer be ignored. The U.S. began formalizing vehicle safety standards, and in 1968, a major shift happened. Cars were required to have at least one exterior mirror. One, at least one,
At
okay?
least one.
Most manufacturers installed two, but not because it looked better, but because it really did save lives. It
Ma-
still does. There are still blind spots, though.
Yes. But mirrors, well, they got a little smarter because mirrors didn't disappear. They evolved. Convex mirrors. These curved mirrors, well, widened your field of view, reducing blind spots dramatically. But they came with a trade-off. They made objects look a little farther away than what they were, which is why you see that writing on the bottom of them. And, that little writing that says objects in mirror are closer than they appear. Well, that phrase is so common, it become cultural shorthand for misjudgment.
Power and heated mirrors came about around the 70s and 80s, okay? Suddenly, they weren't just static pieces of glass. They could adjust with a switch, defrost in winter, stay usable in rain or fog, and those were small changes, but really huge improvements in real world driving. And then auto dimming mirrors came about in the 80s and 90s, which was inspired by aircraft technology. These mirrors reduced glare from headlights behind you. If you've ever driven at night and not been blinded, you can thank that innovation.
Absolutely, I love that. And then the digital age from the 2000s to today. Now we move into the modern era when mirrors are no longer just mirrors. They're part of a system. On the modern cars, you have that little blind spot where it pops up unless you know if you got something beside you. You have rear view cameras, sensor alerts, even digital side mirrors. Some vehicles are experimenting with removing mirrors entirely now, replacing them with, well, cameras and screens. But here's the catch. Mirrors don't crash. Mirrors don't lag. Mirrors don't need power.
Or computer chips.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue right now in the car industry is computer chips.
Yep. And because of all of that, many regulations, well, they still require them.
Why mirrors still matter. Okay, it is easy to overlook them. They're quiet, passive, always there. But think about what they actually do. They give you awareness, reaction time, control, and they help prevent lanes change collisions. They do, unless somebody's in your blind spot, which is really annoying.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Rear end crashes, blind spot accidents, and they've subtly changed behavior. Drivers became, well, because my car also doesn't have the fancy light that tells if somebody's behind me. So I do actually have to like turn my head a little bit to see when I'm changing lanes.
Yeah, mine doesn't have it either. I drive an older vehicle,
But I also don't have to worry about my computer trips crashing.
but before we end, let's debunk a few myths here. So mirrors were invented to spot police.
No, they were invented for racing awareness.
Early roads, well, nobody were on those roads.
On the contrary, they were very chaotic and crowded.
No rules.
Zero.
Frogger. You ever played Frogger? I
Yes.
that's how I imagine early roads before laws.
Most definitely. I imagine the scene in Mulan with the grandma and the cricket.
All
Yeah.
right. Side mirrors matter less.
Wrong. They prevent some of the most dangerous accidents.
Cameras are always better.
Not necessarily. They can fail, and mirrors don't.
Mirrors reduce awareness.
Actually, they expand it.
Hmm. Okay. I thought this one was pretty fun. I mean, the rear view mirror is over 100 years old, and it really hadn't changed. It's still the same idea, right?
Yes.
Still checking behind you.
Yeah.
No batteries, no software, no noise, just
Mm,
glass.
just glass. Just don't, break it off.
Oh man, back in the day, I don't think you can do that now, but the older cars, you could just go like to turn it on a hot summer day, and then you would go to leave it, and it would just be coming with you in your hand. And you would have
Oh,
to go to the auto parts store and get the glue and stuff to glue it back on.
oh, no,
So
no,
that's
that doesn't
before your
happen too
time.
much. Yeah, I didn't realize they were glued on, man. I used to work in a door mirror and door handle factory, as a matter of fact, and they are screwed on these days.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, the mirror, it's over 100 years old.
It's insane.
Still keeping you alive.
Yeah, you
Staying
can,
alive. Staying alive.
yeah, and it taught us something we weren't used to doing too. We can look back while moving forward.
If you would like to support this podcast, tell a friend and help get the word out.
If you'd like to support the show, you can do so at Patreon or take advantage of our sponsors, and those links are in the show notes.
Info go. Kat and I want to say thank you for listening.
Whether you've been with us from day one or just tuning in, thank you.
Oh, you can join the Facebook group at Info on the Go.
Over there, you can get to know us.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just ask us a question.
But please, whatever you do, follow us wherever you get your podcast.
Send us some of that fan mail. We love that stuff. Or you can leave a review.
Leaving that review really does help others find us. You can email William or myself directly at
Info on the Go podcast at gmail.com.
and all of that is in the show notes. Till next time.
Stay curious. If your stomach's been off lately, like bloating, reflux, or just not feeling right, there's a simpler way to get back on track.
With Professor B's Digestive Aid, which is an all natural blend of pure honey and ancient apitherapy, a herb rooted in Roman tradition. You know how at least they had some things right, right? It's designed to gently support and balance your digestion.
No long ingredient list, no harsh additives, just two powerful, time tested ingredients working together. It's even the same formula used to help cancer patients manage digestive discomfort.
And right now, you can get an exclusive 10% off any product. Just use our code INFOGO at checkout.